Hello, my name is Dr. Samori Swygert, and today I'm going to be talking about the game of chess. The game of chess is more than just a game. For centuries, this game has been played, but it teaches strategy, it teaches tactics, it forces critical thinking, analytical skills, rationale, logistics, and as we raise our younger generation, it's important that they understand how to play chess and think about it in terms of a new perspective. They're looking at it through new lenses, more than just entertainment. So I'm giving you the bare basics of how chess should be looked at and played. And this is my interpretation of the chess pieces and how they move in relations to governments domestically and globally. The game of chess, my philosophy is that it operates under the 3 C's, which is conquest, capitalism, and conflict. Let's get started. The pawns. There are 8 pawns on the chessboard, and as I said, the chessboard is representative of the globe or countries. So when we think of the pawns, we want to think of them as the everyday common folks. These are the parents, these are children, these are 9-to-5 workers at a job. They may be representative of some social and civic organizations like the ACLU, the NAACP, different grassroots organizations, human rights groups, labor unions. These individuals have influence, but they don't have true power. Like, they cannot exert an exact power on other countries, and they are not affiliated with the government. It's different from being in a branch of government as opposed to being just an ordinary citizen or a group that has certain interests, but they are not government affiliated. So this is what you have to think about when we talk about pawns. So being that they are not government affiliated, they are not part of any branch of the government or anything like that, they may be at risk for being neutralized or sacrificed for a greater purpose, just like in the game of chess. So that's something that we have to think about as citizens. When we go in certain directions, are we being sacrificed or neutralized for a greater purpose that we don't necessarily understand? These are the pawns on the board. A pawn can only move one space at a time, and that is in a forward direction. Unless it is the first move, they can move 2 spaces. After that, it's 1 space at a time going directly forward. The only way they can attack is diagonally. 1 square in a diagonal motion they can attack, and that represents the pawn that has limited power, limited range, limited mobility. That's the pawn. The king represents the government. The government, when you think about it, it operates in a multi-directional manner. You know, it can go in several different, a wide range, a wide array of maneuvers. So the king can go any direction. It can move left, it can move right, it can move forward, it can move backward, it can move diagonal. The king cannot hop another player. But even though it can do left, right, forward, backward, diagonal, it can only do that 1 space at a time. And that is representative of having limited governmental power. That would be equivalent to the United States of America saying that we have checks and balances so that the government does not form or transform into an authoritarian or dictatorship style form of government. And see, we're talking about governments and kings. When we deal on a global level, when we talk about continents and countries and nations, all these different entities have different or various styles of government. Throughout history, we're familiar with socialism or communism, We may think of the authoritarian style form of government. We have democracy. So when we look at this, you're saying, okay, one space at a time, we are limiting governmental power. That's the checks and balances to make sure that authoritarian style dictatorship does not occur. The other thing that we want to talk about with the king is preventing the king or the government from arriving into a situation of check and the situation of checkmate. When a king is in check, that means that the opposing country or government has the other country in limited mobility, limited range, limited power, limited resources. You may think of this as when countries may exact and impose sanctions on other countries. That's like a check. You may think of when they put embargoes and trade embargoes on other countries. That's a check. You may think of nuclear weapons inspections. That's like check. So they're cutting off the mobility, the movement, all the different ways in which a government may maneuver in various fashions, whether financially, militarily, resources. This, as you keep imposing these different checks, you are now encroaching on that government and almost shutting it down. When you shut that government down, that is checkmate. You have killed the king. That king is inoperable. That country and that government has been rendered ineffective and completely neutralized. So that is the king. The queen represents the monetary entity. This is the financial arm. These are your banks, your multinational corporations, the Treasury, Wall Street, your financial institutions. This is the financial capitalistic might. It allows you to move in any direction limitlessly because money knows no real boundaries. These are like your financial tentacles across the globe and at home, foreign and domestic. So you think of, when we talk about money, we talk about finance, we're talking about global commerce. We're talking about trade. You want to think about loans to other countries, loan them money and then charge them interest. You think about the bailouts that occur, whether we're talking about domestically with the auto industry or when we talk about what's going on with Greece and Cyprus. This is the financial relief. When you think about the earthquake in Haiti, the earthquake in Nepal, the tsunamis, when we loan them money for a natural disaster relief, we don't just loan in expectation that they're going to keep the money. Oh no, we expect this back. And we're probably going to we will attach a interest rate to that. And if you cannot afford to repay that, then we're coming to recoup what we loaned you in a different form, whether it's land or your resources within that land. We will commandeer your sovereignty. You can also look at it as we will exert our financial might by funding my enemy's enemy. So I may not need to fight my enemy directly. No, I'll spend money with my enemy's enemy, train them to take them out. Same way we train Afghan, Iraqi soldiers. That's money involved in that. Money is going over there. You think about the money that has gone to Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan, all that ghost money, all that hush money that arrived in suitcases that went unchecked. This is that queen moving. So you think of that imposing financial influence. You think about how money infuses and integrates into politics, whether we're talking about corporate lobbyists and the money they spend to get Congress to kowtow to the demands of corporations and the banks. You think of the super PACs and their influence on elections. You think of soft money campaign donations. This is queen right here. That is that real purchase power, whether legal or illegal. It's can you prove it or can you not? Legal or illegal. Backroom deals or under the table deals. Doesn't make a difference. That is the queen. That's why the queen can move forward, backward, left, right, diagonal, as far as she wants to go until she finds the target that she wants to hit or the target where she wants to sit. That's the queen. The rook is your intelligence arm. Okay? They are responsible for conducting surveillance and reconnaissance. And if you look at the chessboard, your rook are the outermost players. They are the far right and the far left in the back row. Now, being that they represent the surveillance and the reconnaissance, note that there are two rooks. They represent one, the domestic intelligence arm, meaning they're gathering information domestically within your country. And then you have the international arm, where they're gathering intelligence abroad and globally, internationally. So when you think of the domestic arm, this is where you should be thinking about the NSA, the FBI, Homeland Security. When you want to think of the second rook, the international intelligence arm, now you're talking about the National Security Council, the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the DIA that a lot of people don't think about. The DIA is the Defense Intelligence Agency, which also exists. And they operate longitudinally and latitudinally. When you look at the chessboard, you have rows and columns. When it goes horizontally in that row, that is called a rank. When you're talking about columns vertically, those are called file. So, you hear people say rank and file. If it's going horizontally, that is your rank. And if it's going vertically, that is your file. So you have your rooks that go up and down the board, all across the globe, collecting data, collecting intelligence. And what do is they assess and they evaluate threat and risk levels, and they report that back to the government. That is how the rook works. And if you also think about it, they share that intelligence with the government, because in the game of chess, they have a maneuver that's called castling, in which the king and the rook can swap places. So we can say that that's like sharing that information that they've retrieved from their intelligence gathering, both domestically and internationally. That's your rook. What is the bishop? The bishop represents the propaganda arm. Every government needs a successful war campaign that justifies why they are engaging another country or another government. You can't just go and engage another country or government willy-nilly. You need to have reasons. You need to have impetuses. You have to galvanize that public support. You have to plead your case as to why you want to go to Iraq, why you want to go to Afghanistan, why you want to engage with Iran, why you want to mess with North Korea. This is the propaganda arm. Now, what makes up the propaganda arm? The bishops. There are two bishops. And they represent, one, the religious arm, and then two, the media and entertainment arm. We all know that religion plays a very big part in what people think, feel, how they act, how they address and treat other people, how they conduct themselves in society, in their homes. Religion plays a very big role when we think about Christianity, when we think about Islam, when we think about the Jewish faith, whether we're even talking about Taoism, Shintoism, Buddhism, whatever the case may be. But religion governs that mental faculty in individuals. And people operate in different realms, and they operate in different behaviors according to the faith they may follow. So that's one arm, the religious arm. Second arm, the media and the entertainment arm. Aha. These are what we're talking about, the news, whether we're talking about watching the news, newspapers, documentaries. This also goes into videos, movies, books, social media. So we can think about, like, with movies, they had like Zero Dark 30. I forgot the one where it was like this patriotic sniper. They can have different books. You can think about all the different news pundits that have books. Like Rush Limbaugh has books. Ted Cruz is making big news about his book being on as he's campaigning now. All of this sculpts the image that the government wants individuals to see, feel, believe, hear, and act on. And so these two entities, they work in concert. They indoctrinate the citizens. They spread the propaganda. They shape the public opinion. They dictate to the public who is the public enemy. And they sculpt what the picture of patriotism is supposed to look like. Those are your bishops, the religious arm and the media entertainment arm. And they come together to form the propaganda arm that the government plays on to engage foreign enemies, governments, and countries. The bishops. All familiar with. The knight represents your military, your war machine. Even in traditional times, when you think of medieval times, they would mount up on that knight would mount up on that horse when they get ready to engage in battle and war. So, you know, when they had like the duels on the horses, the knight is representative of the military arm, the military might. And so whenever you think about engaging in war and conflict or conquest, you want to think about the military. And the military is responsible for the offense, globally, internationally, and defense, to make sure that home is protected. Your country, your government, your land is protected. So it has an offense and defense component. And it's, being that the knights, there are two knights. There is that international military presence, and there's that domestic military presence. What is the international military presence? These are what we know as the Navy, the Army, the Marine, the Air Force. So they take that by law, LAW, land, air, and water. LAW, land, air, water. And that's accomplished by the Navy, the Army, the Marine, the Air Force. And that's your international military presence. Number two, the second knight. That is the domestic military presence. You can think of that as the National Guard, the Coast Guard, FEMA, Border Patrol. All those are there to make sure that domestically we are protected, we're taken care of. And to a smaller extent, but not necessarily, you can think of like the DEA, the ATF, along those lines. These are all domestic. But the DEA and ATF, they're not necessarily military, but still there is a protective force there. Now, they make their moves strategically, domestically, and abroad to make sure that they can ensure safety of the country and protect the government interests. Two key things. You want to ensure the safety of the country and at the same time protect government interests. So we can be safe here in America, but we also have interests in Israel. We have interests in Africa, which is why we have AFRICOM in Africa. So many different resources, natural resources, rare earth metals and minerals are scattered abroad globally. We talk about God, and I'm not talking about the religious aspect. I think the rapper AZ said it best on his album cover, God, G-O-D, gold, oil, diamonds. These are all abroad. These are interests, waterways, water resources, large aquifers in different countries. These are things that we want. Large arable land where we can grow crops. Okay? This is what we call our interests. So you use your military to also protect that. You think about all the poppy fields in Afghanistan that a lot of people don't understand. When we went to Afghanistan, it was more than just fighting Al-Qaeda. There was hectares upon hectares of poppy fields that produces opium globally. So these are the interests that we must think about, that the military is there to protect. Now, the Knights, if you think about it, they have a very unique maneuver. It is a 3-step maneuver. First, it's 2 steps in one direction, and then 1 step in the perpendicular direction. So they can move forward 1 space, 2 space, and then they have to move either left or move right. It's 3 steps. 1, 2, and then move left or right. They can do that going backwards. They can do that going forward. They can do that left or right. And you'll see that in the demonstration. But that maneuver also represents, you can think of the declaration of war. Technically, the president cannot declare war without getting the approval from Congress. And Congress, we know, is divided by 2 bodies, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So he has to first get the approval from those 2. 1 from the Senate, 2 from the representatives. From there, the president can go left or right. Yes, I'm going to go to war. No, I'm not going to go to war. So you can think about it that way. Or you can look at it as 2 spaces, and that is engage, step 1, step 2, execute, and step 3, move to the side and wait for the next plan, or wait for your instructions, or wait for the government to come in and exact new policy, or move aside and let our corporate interests and the queen, the money, the multinationals, the banks come in and do what they need to do. So that would be engage, execute, step aside. Or we're going to go to war. I need approval from the House and the Senate, and then I make my own decision. 3-step moves. 2 in one direction and left or right. That's the Knight, the military.